She pounded her feces and used it as foundation and powder for her clients. In the bustling heart of Lagos, Nigeria, where dreams were built on the foundations of hustle and ambition, there stood a small makeup studio that would become the center of a nightmare no one could have imagined. The studio belonged to Ada, a 32-year-old woman whose passion for makeup artistry had been her lifelong dream, but whose desperation would lead her down a path so dark that it would haunt an entire community for years to come. Ada had always been fascinated by the transformative power of makeup. As a young girl growing up in Enugu, she would watch her mother prepare for church services, carefully applying powder and lipstick with the precision of an artist working on a masterpiece. Those moments had planted a seed in Ada's heart, a seed that grew into an all-consuming desire to make women feel beautiful, to see their faces light up when they looked in the mirror and saw the best versions of themselves staring back. After years of saving money from her job as a sales clerk in a clothing boutique, Ada had finally gathered enough capital to open her own makeup studio. She had rented a small shop on Allen Avenue in Ikeja, a location she believed would bring her success. The street was known for its beauty salons and fashion boutiques, places where women with money and taste came to pamper themselves. Ada had invested everything she had into her business. She purchased the finest makeup products she could afford, importing brands from Europe and America. She bought professional lighting, comfortable chairs, large vanity mirrors with bulbs around their frames, and even commissioned a beautiful sign that read Kyoma's Glam Studio in elegant gold lettering named after her mother. The opening day had been filled with hope and excitement. Ada had stood at the entrance of her shop in her crisp white uniform, her own face perfectly made up, ready to welcome the flood of customers she was certain would come. But as the hours passed, only a handful of curious passers-by stopped to glance inside. By the end of the first week, she had serviced only 3 clients, and the money they paid barely covered her daily expenses. Across the street, directly opposite her shop, stood the establishment that would become her obsession and her torment. Beauty by Ngozi was a thriving makeup studio owned by Ngozi Okafor, a woman in her late 40s who had been in the business for over 15 years. Ngozi's shop was always packed with clients. Women lined up outside her door, willing to wait hours for her services. Her Instagram page boasted over 200,000 followers, and she was regularly featured in bridal magazines and fashion blogs. Ada would watch from her empty shop as Ngozi's assistants hurried back and forth, as brides in their white robes waited their turn, as bridesmaids laughed and chatted while getting their faces done. The contrast was crushing. Ada had the skills, she was certain of it. She had trained at a reputable makeup academy in Lekki, had practiced on countless faces, and had a natural eye for color and contouring. But none of that mattered when no one walked through her door. She tried everything she could think of to attract customers. She printed flyers and distributed them around the neighborhood. She offered discounts, sometimes reducing her prices so low that she barely made a profit. She created an Instagram page and posted pictures of the few clients she had serviced, using every hashtag she could think of to gain visibility. Nothing worked. As the months passed, Ada's savings dwindled rapidly. The rent on the shop was due every month, and her landlord was not a patient man. The suppliers who had sold her makeup products on credit began calling her, demanding payment. Her own rent at the single room she occupied in Ogba was overdue. She survived on 1 meal a day, usually a small portion of rice or gari, and spent her days sitting in her beautiful, empty shop, watching as Ngozi's business flourished while hers withered. The breaking point came on a particularly difficult evening. Ada had received a stern warning from her shop landlord that if she did not pay the 3 months' rent she owed within 2 weeks, he would lock up her shop and seize all her equipment. That same day, her supplier had sent his assistant to her shop to collect payment or repossess the products she had bought on credit. She had begged for more time, promising she would pay soon, but she could see the doubt in their eyes. As she locked up her shop that evening and walked the lonely streets back to her room, tears streamed down her face. She had failed. All her dreams, all her sacrifices, all the money she had borrowed from friends and family, everything had been for nothing. That night, lying on her thin mattress in her cramped room, Ada made a decision that would change her life forever. She would seek help from the spiritual realm. She had heard whispers about such things before, stories of people who had consulted powerful spiritualists when conventional means failed them. She had always dismissed such talk as superstition, but desperation has a way of making the unthinkable appear as the only option left. Through a friend of a friend, Ada learned about a voodoo priest who lived in a remote area on the outskirts of Lagos, near Badagry. His name was Baba Augun, and he was said to be powerful beyond measure, capable of changing destinies and bending fate to his will. The journey to find him took Ada through narrow, unpaved roads, past fishing villages and dense vegetation, until she arrived at a compound surrounded by tall palm trees and ancient-looking sculptures. Baba Augun was a small man with grey dreadlocks and eyes that seemed to look through a person rather than at them. His compound smelled of incense and herbs, and the walls of his consultation room were covered with mysterious symbols and dried animal skins. When Ada explained her situation, Baba Augun listened in silence, occasionally nodding his head. When she finished, he sat back in his chair and studied her for a long moment before speaking. He told her that he could indeed make her the most sought-after makeup artist in Nigeria. Her shop would overflow with clients, and her name would be mentioned among the elite. Money would flow to her like a river after heavy rains. But such power came with a price, and it was not a monetary price. He explained the ritual she would need to perform each morning, a ritual so grotesque that Ada felt her stomach turn as he described it. She would need to use her own feces as the base for her foundation and powder. Each morning, she would collect her first bowel movement, divide it into 2 portions, mash one thoroughly for foundation, and dry the other in the sun before grinding it into a fine powder. He would provide her with a special potion that would eliminate any odor and give the mixture a pleasant fragrance that would make her clients believe they were experiencing luxury products. Ada had felt revulsion rise in her throat as Baba Augun explained the process. This was beyond anything she had imagined. This was not just spiritually questionable, it was physically repulsive, morally reprehensible. But as she sat in that dimly lit room, thinking about her mounting debts, her empty shop, her failed dreams, something inside her shifted. She thought about Ngozi across the street, thriving while she suffered. She thought about the landlord who would soon throw her out. She thought about returning to her village in shame, admitting to her family that she had failed. In that moment, Ada convinced herself that she could do this. She would do whatever it took to succeed, and once she was established, once she had money and fame, she could find a way to break free from the ritual. She agreed to Baba Augun's terms. He gave her a small bottle containing a dark, viscous liquid that shimmered strangely in the light. He instructed her on the exact process she needed to follow, warned her never to miss a single day, and sent her on her way with a knowing smile that would haunt her dreams in the months to come. The first morning of the ritual was the hardest thing Ada had ever done. Standing in her small bathroom, staring at what she had to work with, she nearly backed out. Her hands shook as she followed Baba Augun's instructions, dividing and processing the material, adding the potion he had given her. The transformation was startling. The foul substance became odorless, then began to emit a subtle, pleasant scent reminiscent of expensive perfume. The texture changed too, becoming smooth and creamy for the foundation, fine and silky for the powder. If Ada had not known what she was working with, she would have believed these were premium products from a high-end brand. She stored the preparations in clean containers, trying not to think about their origin, and opened her shop that afternoon. 4 hours, nothing changed. The street remained busy, but no one entered her shop. Then, around 3 in the afternoon, a woman in her mid-30s walked in. Her name was Amaka, and she was attending a wedding that evening, but her regular makeup artist had cancelled on her at the last minute. She was desperate and willing to try someone new. Ada's hands trembled slightly as she began to work, applying the cursed foundation to Amaka's face. But as she worked, she noticed something remarkable. The foundation went on more smoothly than any product she had ever used. It seemed to melt into the skin, creating a flawless finish that looked completely natural yet perfected every feature. The powder set everything beautifully, giving Amaka's skin an ethereal glow that photographs could never quite capture. When Ada finished and turned Amaka toward the mirror, the woman gasped audibly. Amaka could not believe what she saw. Her skin looked poreless, radiant, as if she had been photoshopped in real life. The makeup had somehow made her features more harmonious, more beautiful than she had ever seen them. She took out her phone and immediately began calling friends, raving about the makeup artist she had discovered. Before leaving, she booked Ada for her own upcoming birthday party and promised to send all her friends. That evening, Ada closed her shop with a mixture of elation and deep unease. The magic had worked, but at what cost? She tried not to think about it, focusing instead on the fact that she finally had a satisfied client who would spread the word about her services. The transformation of Ada's business was nothing short of miraculous. Within days, word spread through Lagos's social circles about the makeup artist who could make anyone look like a goddess. The weekend brought her first real test. It was an Owambi, a traditional Yoruba party known for its grandeur and extravagance, and the hostess had somehow heard about Ada. When Ada arrived at her shop that Saturday morning, she found a crowd of over 30 women waiting outside, all of them scheduled to have their makeup done for the same event. That day became a blur of activity.